Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Elizabeth Navarrete with Houston REI Network. And today we have a very special guest, Nicole Espinosa. She is our short sale extraordinaire. And we also have Kaylee McMahon. We're going to be discussing multiple liens, heirships, and reverse mortgages. Please feel free to ask questions, and we will definitely get to them at the end. We'll be right back after this short break.
Propelio is sponsored by Noble Mortgage Investments.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to get right into the topic today. We're going to be discussing multiple liens, heirships, and reverse mortgages with Miss Nicole Espinosa. She is a realtor. Well, you can tell us. Tell us who is Nicole Espinosa? What do you?
How much time do we have?
We have an hour, and we can do another show. So,
hi guys. Thank you so much for having me on today. So Nicole Espinosa. I have DFW and Houston short sale experts, which is our brand, but we actually do short sales everywhere. We are mostly in the DFW. We're based out of DFW. And we're also in the Houston market. Yay. So we do about 70 to 80 a month that we process. So it's definitely a high volume. Sure. So I think I know a little bit. I'm not sure, but I know a little bit.
Oh, you know a lot. And here we have my lovely co-host, Kaylee McMahon.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Just over here asking questions because I don't know anything about short sales, honestly.
Okay, so that's great because we have a lot of viewers that have even mentioned to me that this is new to them, that they're not very aware of how the process works. So let's get into it. Nicole, tell us. Let's talk about a realtor standpoint, and then I guess we can talk as far as investors because we have a lot of real estate agents watching, and we have a lot of investors watching. So let's dive into the whole aspect of short sales. As far as the retail side of it.
Okay, great. So just what a short sale is?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, quite a lot of people are probably not even aware what a short sale is.
Yeah, absolutely. So a short sale is where a homeowner owes more than the house is worth. They have to have a financial hardship, and so those are the two components. You have to have a financial hardship, and you have to owe more than the house is worth. Okay, right. So in order to avoid foreclosure and you need to sell the house, we go to the lender and anything that's owed. So if they have multiple lenders, taxes, I mean, all of the above, liens, any type of liens, we go to their lender and we have them take the loss instead of the homeowner. So the homeowner gets to walk away free and clear from the debt. So if you break it apart from a realtor and investor standpoint, as a realtor, you're going on a listing appointment and you're finding out, hey, what's your payoffs? Oh man, I can only list it at this price, but you owe $50,000 more. Well, that would be a short sale. And so basically, if you're not able to cover all costs, including your fee as a realtor and all the closing costs, then it is a short sale.
Correct.
On the investing standpoint, you're making an offer and it just doesn't make any sense. You're making an offer for $100,000, their payoff's $150,000. You don't even have a realtor involved and it just doesn't make sense for your margins. That's a short sale. And so you can still buy the house at a discount, but it's through the lender, and the lender now makes the decisions.
Okay, very good. Very good. Go ahead.
From a retail standpoint, like I would have never thought to ask those things. You know what I mean? Like when you're a realtor and you go on a listing appointment, especially like a new realtor, and you're sitting there and you're like, okay, asking them, like usually there's a questionnaire that I use, that has all the features of the house and it talks about, I would forget to ask like, hey, what do you owe on this place? You know what I mean? Some people bring it up because they have a certain target in mind that they need to make to break even or to satisfy whatever else they have going on in their life, divorce, whatever. But sometimes that's not even brought up. Sometimes they're just like, get me the best price that you can. And that's interesting to ask those questions.
I'll tell you this, the majority of the referrals I get from realtors, they're at closing. And they're like, oh, we can't close today. And I'm like, and I have so many questions when people do that because I'm like, how do you get to closing and the title company? Because the thing is what you just said. People just go with what the client says. And the client doesn't know any better. So someone has to drive the bus and say, hey, look, make sure you do your due diligence because I'm all about how can we, time is our only commodity. So how can we make sure that this is going to get to the closing table, right? What's 3% of 0? Zero.
Exactly.
So there's our first nugget. Yeah, let's see it on there. Golden nugget.
There. Yes, yes.
As a realtor, always ask kind of what they owe on the house, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, sometimes people will say, and I'll go a little bit further than that, because especially as an investor, if you're used to, you know, as an investor, you know a little bit more like, hey, what is your payoff?
Right.
But a lot of people, the question I ask when people say, I owe $150,000, I ask, okay, where'd you get that number?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are just looking at their mortgage statements. Well, the issue is if you're behind, it exceeds way further because the mortgage statement is only the unpaid principal balance. So it has no weight on the attorney fees, late fees, interest.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. I have seen over the years balances go up $50, $100, $150,000 from that unpaid principal balance.
That's something I would only know as an investor because there's a book that I read that I have this wow model that I get there on the phone, you know, when they're like wanting to sell this property that they have, whether they live in it, don't, whatever. And I ask these questions like, what do you think it's worth? Where did you get that number from? What do you owe? So I can figure out what I can offer, and then what's TI on the place? Is it current? All those kinds of things. But as a retail agent, I would never think to ask that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I say that to all the realtors. I'm like, look, you need to have all the information. You need to dive in and don't rely on the title company and things like that because you're spending so much time and effort marketing the home and everything. And how do you even know you can accept that offer? But as a retail realtor, you're used to just going with what the client says. And you got to remember, I'm in a different world. I run the show when it comes to the short sales. So I'm like, okay, this, and this. This is what we have to do.
Right, right.
So it's totally different.
I was reading your book and I enjoyed reading it. It was so, I mean, you need to read it.
Yeah,
I highly recommend
I'll give
it.
you a copy.
It's right there, actually. What's the title of it? Short
Sales Uncensored.
Uncensored, yeah. Really, really good. It's a good, I mean, I was highlighting, making notes, taking notes here, because it really, really gives you a breakdown of like the process and if it's a, you know, you also have to ask what kind of loan do they have, conventional or an FHA.
She did read it.
I did read it, yes, yes. And the differences. So can you explain that for us? So if the homeowner has an FHA loan, how different is that from dealing with doing a short sale for a conventional loan?
Absolutely.
Or VA?
So, yes, absolutely.
Or VA,
so
yes.
remember, so the book is a basis, right? Because there's no way. First of all, I don't have the patience to write that much, right? But there's no way I could go into every single thing. But it does give you a good guide on, so that you at least feel educated when you're talking to the clients and you know what to ask. Because those are the most important things, knowing to ask the right questions. As far as the different loans, if you're going to be processing short sales, you have to know what type of loan it is because you have to know how to start the short sale and how to get it moving. So every process is different. So you could work with a Wells Fargo FHA and a Wells Fargo conventional, and it's a completely different process. Because HUD is FHA, and it has requirements on how you have to list the home, what you have to submit, and the marketing periods before foreclosure. A conventional is just a private investor that, you know, everything's negotiable because they really don't have a guideline. You know, anything government is all guidelines. VA, totally different ballgame because now you're dealing with veterans or with the VA.
They're real strict when it comes to on the borrowing side, so I'm assuming on the opposite it's the same.
They are, absolutely.
I'm protecting our veterans.
Yes, something like that. And so,
wait, expand on that. How do you feel?
I don't know. This is getting recorded. No, but no. You know, it's really great. The issue when it comes to dealing with loss mitigation when you're dealing with short sales is that it's the concept of value. Okay. So when they don't understand that the property has to be sold as is, all they're looking at is the loss that they're taking. So the reason why I went something like that is because a lot of times they are in denial if a house is severely distressed, but in a beautiful neighborhood, because those are the hardest short sales, and you have to know how to get around it because they're like, no, the value is $300,000. I'm like, yeah, if it was perfect, but
how do you get around that?
Well, we work with the appraiser. Yeah, she's like, tell me.
This is great.
Yes.
Well, the key is we try to be proactive. Yeah. So we communicate with the appraiser, we get bids up front, and we provide everything. But you still have the appraisers that or dumb and still do it wrong.
Oh, yes, yes, and yes.
And then honestly, it's really about pleading your case and going to the right contacts at the VA, and really any, right? So it could be HUD, VA, but VA specifically, and pleading your case. I mean, we had one that has been an absolute nightmare. It's the longest short sale I've done so far. It's in a year because our average is 2 to 3 months.
Oh,
and
that's good, actually.
I am not giving up. I'm like, no, forget you. Like, we are getting this done. And so I've had to go through like 4 or 5 different people at the VA because everyone says the same thing. And so that's why short sales are really complicated, because it's understanding that if someone says no to you, you're talking to the wrong person.
Right. Well, so who do you go see? Who do you like? Because you go to a store, you're like, hey, can I talk to your manager? Like, is it like that?
Honestly, there's layers. It's like escalating, and then we have contacts because we've been doing this so long. Yeah. And it's really navigating. You know, there's a handful of people. Well, the majority of people just hate their jobs when they're working in loss mitigation
and everything. I mean,
and
post office.
It's just anything government, right?
Yeah,
sure.
But it's understanding like most agents. The bank said no. I'm like, no, the bank said no based on the information you provided.
Right.
Yeah.
It's because you're not doing something wrong. You're doing something wrong.
Right.
And so I'm telling you, when it comes to realtors, 99% of my referrals is because they said, I can't do it.
Right.
They said no.
Right, because I was
figure out where it gets stuck.
Right, because you have to put in a lot of calls. You have to do a lot of work with the file itself, and then also what I was reading in your book, you're also dealing with your clients, because then they'll move.
They're
on
worse
you.
than the bank sometimes.
They'll change their number. They won't tell you, and things will. Yeah, so she's like doing all this work with the bank, but she also has to deal with the clients,
which is a key thing that what she just said, because the clients sometimes are worse than the banks. I can beat up the banks. I can get a no from a yes.
Right.
All of that. But if the client disappears, it's over.
Yeah.
And so anybody that's ever dealt, well, it's constant communication. It's like setting the expectations. Well, contracts mean nothing if somebody's behind.
Contract for services or anything like that, you know?
Well, at the end of the day, it's hard to enforce, right? Because they signed a contract to pay their mortgage.
And they're not paying it. Right.
So it's not really much you can enforce for someone that's in behind. But you know, as an investor, I mean, you guys and this side as well, you understand where I'm coming from, because you know, people that are in this mentality, I mean, you have to handle them differently than a traditional client. Right. And most realtors don't understand that. And they're like, I don't know how to even talk to this person because they're unmotivated, you know, and the only time that they're really motivated is when they see that sale date. That foreclosure sale date. Right. And then they're like, okay, we need to do this now. And you're like, really? Your sale date's in 3 days? Right. I think I told you this off camera.
Yes, you did.
That the 2 weeks before the sale date is my craziest time. My family doesn't see me. My friends don't see me. Last month, we stopped 32 foreclosures.
Oh, wow.
In February.
That's a lot.
And it was like a record for us. And it was literally the most overwhelming thing ever. But it's one of those things where people wait until the last minute, and that's how investors are able to market to these foreclosures, right? Because now they're ready. Right. So it's setting their expectations, honestly. That's what it comes down to.
So the soonest, or I guess the latest in the timeline that you can actually help someone is when they're 2 weeks prior to the foreclosure date. Am I right on this?
Well,
or no?
Yes and no. So I get referrals up until like a week before the sale date. The rule of thumb for us is we need at least 2 weeks to stop the foreclosure. Okay. Now, if it gets less time, then we're able to help them with legal options, you know, with our attorney and things that they can do on their own to stop the foreclosure. But as far as a short sale and we have a couple different ways that we stop it without having to involve an attorney. Okay. But you know, every situation's different. So that's why I said, I have to figure out and dive in. Like, the amount of delinquency is a huge factor on what we can do last minute. Right. Because we had someone that I was like, look, we have 3 weeks before the sale date. This is awesome. And come to find out, when we went to the attorney, he was 11 years behind.
Oh,
11.
My God.
And so they basically just said, F you.
Yeah.
So there's no favors at that point.
How could they, I mean, how did they
get strategic?
I was going to ask that, you know, like something I read in a book recently was talking about you'd be amazed by the number of people that because of pride issues or whatever, they'll just let their stuff go into foreclosure. And I'm like, what?
Right.
You're crazy, you know?
It's denial. And it's not opening mail. It's not dealing with the terms.
Yes, that's what I was reading there in your book, that you're saying that, I mean, they'll give you the mail to read.
Yep.
No way.
I'm not kidding. I've gone to appointments where they've handed me a stack of mail. I know, I should charge itemized, right?
Right. It's like $5 per envelope.
You know I'm a realtor. When?
Seriously. Yeah, but it's like, it's their mentality, again, that mentality of not facing the reality that they're in. That's how much distress they're in that they don't even want to deal with. Yep. And it's interesting to see that they're not even opening their mail. They're not even seeing what's going on. It's like, I would, in 11 years, that to me is insane.
But at that point,
stories, and this is,
at that point though, when you're that far behind, the further behind they are, I've found the worse the client.
Correct.
And the reason why is because they've been able to get away with it for so long.
Living rent free.
Exactly. And they never have money either.
That's right.
And so they're able to get away with it for so long that they're in denial, that they honestly feel entitled. Yeah. Like they feel like, no, this is what you're gonna do for me if you want me to work, if you want to work for me, and the bank has to do this. I'm like, okay, let's go. And so a lot of it is, I mean, at this point, I won't even take them on if I can't get them to come to terms. Yeah, I will not help you to stop your foreclosure just so you can use me to stay in the house longer. Jeez. Like, they're the worst ones to actually move out of the property.
I believe that.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. I was going to ask about, what I was reading in your book, you were talking about loan modification and short sales. And I know that a lot of agents, a lot of retail agents, they think that they're almost the same, but they're not. Or they get them confused. Like, well, they're in loan mod or they're in short sale, and it's like, well, which one is it? Because they're totally different. So can you explain that for us?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So a loan modification. So let's start with if you're behind. If you're behind, you have 3 options. You can do a loan modification, you can do a short sale, or you could do a deed in lieu. Okay. A loan modification is where you're trying to prove to the bank that you can afford the house and that you're trying to keep it. You're not selling it a loan mod. So that's what they're doing.
They're refi or anything?
It's not a refi.
No. Okay.
They're modifying the existing terms of the loan.
Okay.
A refinance is where another lender buys them out,
got it.
which they can't refinance because they're behind.
Credit.
Okay.
Exactly.
Right. So they got to go talk to their bank and be like, hey, let's
they have to try and work something out.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's been so long since I've read my own book, so I don't know if I said this. But
I'll tell you because I just read it.
Okay. But in the loan modification, it's a great concept. Okay. It's a great concept, right? In the sense that, it's, oh, wow, my bank is going to catch me up and I can become current. The problem is that, one, most of the time they don't get approved. Okay, so the bank will not accept payments. They're 6 months behind now. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients that had they just sold right away, they would have had equity. But because they went through multiple loan modifications, trying so hard to keep their house, now they're in a short sale because all their equity went to the late payments, all of that. Yes. Okay, so it's a great concept. And even if they do get approved, they're having so depending on the type of loan. Right. With FHA, they're creating a second lien. So if you guys have ever seen a HUD lien, that's the loan modification. Right. Okay. And by looking at when I do research before I go out, I can tell you exactly what they did. Okay, in 2009, they did a loan mod here. Then they took a second lien. Like, I can pull all of that up just because of that.
How do you pull it up? Do you have a system that you use, or is
yes,
it just
but you can also do
records?
The tax rolls. Okay. So
right.
when you pull up the realist tax as a realtor, you can go to the bottom where it has all of the mortgage history, and you can see the history of what's going on. Right. You can also see when the foreclosure attorney, the substitute trustee, filed for foreclosure. Oh. So you can see the timeline because it's all public record.
Right. Okay. And then you can also go to Secretary of State and check. Once you have a case number, like if there's a file number, you can go and check the file number, and that file number will give you everything. You'll even see their letter of, what is that letter called, where they talk about their distress? Their letter,
hardship letter?
Their hardship letter, exactly. You can see the hardship letter, and you can just really dig in and find out a lot of information. I know this because I do this a lot when it comes to the investment side of it. Because I will tell you honestly, I've been an agent for so long, but I have not really represented a client in a short sale situation because it's very overwhelming.
It is.
And so I just pass it on to somebody that knows what they're doing, because it's a lot of work. I don't know how you do it. How you handle that?
I drink a lot of wine, but
that's a gold nugget right there.
Yeah, golden nugget.
Gold nugget.
No, but seriously, if I only had one, I would never do it. And the only reason why we're able to do it is because we solely focus on it. And you have to, because as a realtor, you do traditional and you're kind of all over the place, and you won't ever do the due diligence to your client or really ever get it done. Yeah. Because what are you going to do? Stay on the phone or work with the client that you're closing in 30 days? you know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I like how you always find a way around. You turn a no into a yes. How you have to put in. I read somewhere there. I think you had to put in 20 calls to some bank because
SunTrust.
Yes, that SunTrust. I was like, that is so interesting. You had to put in 20 calls before she finally got somebody to say yes, and all these emails. You sent like 35 emails
like in a row. I'm like resend. And he literally called me. And he was, because the whole department was trying to get hold of him, and the foreclosure was in 3 days. This was actually one I did in California.
Okay.
And it was so funny because the guy called me, and I was just talking about this yesterday. The guy called me and he was like, yes, Nicole Espinosa, how can I help you?
That's awesome.
And I'm like,
let me tell you.
I'm like, actually, you can send me the approval letter because the entire department, okay, but don't ever send me that many emails again. And I was like, you're calling me. Like, it worked.
Right.
So now I know what works.
But it's also in the bank's
only applies
to get it to make it work, right? Because they're not in the business of acquiring homes, really.
You're thinking way too much into it because the people that are assigned aren't the ones that have the financial interest. So most people think like that. Hey, just call the bank. I'm like, no, because the customer service people, the negotiators, half of them just don't care. They're so overwhelmed. Mr. Cooper, we just talked to them yesterday, and he's like, I'm going to be honest with you. I have 800 files right now. 800 files that he's processing. And he's like, I'll get to it. I'm like, no, this is slam dunk. We're good. Approve it.
Right.
So, I mean, that just kind of gives you an idea that the statistic is that they get to 20%.
That's what I was going to get to.
20%.
It's incredible. 20% of
and they're considered successful to the investor that they're servicing if they get to 20% of their loans. So you better believe I'm going to be in the top 20.
20% of what?
To me.
Meaning that the negotiator, if you have 800 files, if you get to 20% of them, the investor considers you successful, they're happy. So that means 80% are falling to the wayside or getting to it, months later. And that's why you hear those horror stories of short sales going on for a year, 2 years, because the realtor doesn't know what to ask. They're relying on the bank, like I say in my book, blind leading the blind.
Right.
And they're like, well, the bank hasn't called me. The bank's not going to call you. Like, they eventually will in months. And guess what? There might be a sale date, and it might be foreclosed on. You don't even know.
Right.
So,
and that's why a lot of real estate agents fail to do this correctly because they don't realize that they definitely have to get on that phone. They definitely have to hop on that email, be on top of it, be proactive.
Yeah.
Because what is it that you said in there? Be proactive, not reactive. Yeah, you just have to be proactive and do all. To me, honestly, not my cup of tea. That's why you're here, because you have a lot of people that it's better off.
Yeah, I
for
hope you have a whole team that like you do this, you do this, you do that.
Because that
I wouldn't survive if I did it.
No, I know. There's no way.
Pretty amazing. And I wanted to get into the whole point about multiple liens too, because there was something that you mentioned in the book about a mistake that you made, where you assumed that the borrower was telling you that it's only this lien, and then you came to find out that there was a second lien. And so what happened there?
So we pull title right away. And we have to because
so smart.
So they have a saying that buyers are liars, and I'm still trying to come up with something catchy.
Yes.
I'm still trying to come up with catchy for sellers.
And here's
so if you guys have something, let me know so I can start using it.
Yes, I can't stress this enough how important it is if you're an investor, especially if you're a wholesaler. To me, I do not let my team try to even send out a deal to any of my buyers unless they have title pulled first.
Because that's on you.
Yes,
100%.
Because how terrible it is to put something under contract, get the assignment done, you collect the non-refundable fee, and then what happens? Oh, we're having title issues. So it's like, to me, that
gold nugget, guys.
That irks me
title.
so much. Get title, pull title first, because that will save you so much headache. And
that comes down to your relationships too, because the title company has to be willing to pull title. I mean, we use the same one. We have two, and they know like we're on it. So we need that right away because of what you just said. The worst thing in any situation, whether it's a short sale or an investment or a traditional, is to work, I'll go back to time is the only commodity we have. That's it. So we're spinning our wheels, working these deals, and it never gets to the closing table because all of this stuff happens, and it shouldn't.
Yes.
We have that information we're able to get so that we know how to facilitate the process. And so going back to what you said, and I'm trying to remember the example I used in the book, but whenever the second liens pop up, like all of that has to be negotiated. Any liens, not just a second mortgage lien, HOA lien, taxes,
M&M.
IRS, I mean anything, mechanics lien, everything. And all of that has to be negotiated with the first lender, because when you don't, like I did when I first started, which I know all the mistakes. So if anybody needs to know, that's how I know so much. I've made all the mistakes.
I want you to share with us some mistakes, because that's important. We need our viewers to understand what are the most, I guess you could say, the repetitive mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is such a huge one. Like, people focus on what we said. You get a payoff, right? So some people don't even do that, but if they do, they forget to ask, is there anything else? So they are just worried with that first mortgage lien, and they forget to factor in the HOA dues. They forget to factor in, even if the taxes aren't escrowed, taxes or second mortgages or third mortgages. Jeez. So I know the most mortgages I've seen is 4.
No way.
And at that point, at the 4th mortgage, I'm like, okay, why? Just why?
I know, yeah.
They got $500 in the short sale.
You're kidding.
I'm kidding. That was a fun conversation to have with them. But anyways, so yeah, in that case, we had the approval. Well, when I went back to renegotiate with the lender after we had worked so hard to get the bank to approve it, and I said, hey, by the way, there's a second lien, they said, sorry. They're like, nope. Like, we already, someone else is going to have to pay for it.
Right.
And so we had to figure it out. I mean, we ended up having to get the short sale shut down just so we could get it reopened to renegotiate. And it was a whole ordeal. And that's what happens too if you forget like an HOA, where people, they don't pull title. The banks are a little bit smarter, because this was in 2010, 2011.
Right.
The banks are a little bit smarter, and a lot of them, like the bigger ones, Wells Fargo, Chase, they're pulling title up front as well.
Right. Yeah. Okay, good.
So they will actually ask us, hey, what's up with this judgment?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up with this second
lien? And you need to be on it.
Yeah.
You need to be on it. And speaking of being on it, we're going to take a quick break. Please stick around. Get your questions ready, because we're going to also get to them in a minute.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites. Access to true MLS comps. Off-market lead lists. And deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
Thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about airships, multiple liens, and short sales. So, Kaylee, you had a question.
Yeah, so I read a comment earlier that one of our viewers brought up about wondering about reverse mortgages. I think that's what they said. And then there's a bunch of other stuff too, but it was like, the comment was like that big.
We'll get to them. So,
Ryan, help!
So tell us about
we'll start there.
Reverse mortgages. This one's super interesting.
What is that?
Reverse mortgage. Okay. So when we kind of had talked before, that's probably the #1 question when investors are going out for the foreclosures and pre-foreclosures, and they're like, can you do a short sale on a reverse mortgage? Absolutely. So a reverse mortgage is where a homeowner is basically, they don't owe anything. They, in the sense that they don't make monthly payments, but when they pass away, the bank gets the house back. So most people don't understand that means they don't have equity or anything like that.
I think I have heard about this before, because I always associate it with the elderly people that I come in contact with. So it's like I don't owe anything, but we can pull stuff out until I pass.
Right.
Kinda?
So, well, basically the loan's against the house, and the balance goes up every single month, because the idea is that, once they pass away, then the house is the collateral. So it's great for people that have no money, because they love the appeal of like, I get to live here until I die, and then, I don't have to pay anything. Right. The issue is it's never explained to them that if they pass away, they're not passing the house along. Right? There's no equity in the house. Right. So most of the people you come across, they're like, my uncle passed away, or my grandmother, or my mom, but they have this mortgage and the balance is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe, and they just don't, it wasn't explained to them. So it's,
because your heirs have to deal with that, right?
Right, and honestly, it's, I can't stand it, because the whole point of homeownership is to build equity and to be able to pass it on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And it just completely negates that. And most people end up trying to sell it, and they can't.
Right, because all their equity is completely gone, and they, I don't see I really, honestly, and educate me on this, I really don't see a benefit to having a reverse mortgage. Do you see anywhere in your career, have you seen that being an advantage to anyone? I mean, I can't think of other than, I just don't know.
Well, you're not making, but here's something to think about. So if you're getting a reverse mortgage on the basis that you don't have to make a monthly payment, you still owe the taxes and insurance.
Right.
So if you have no money and you still owe $8,000 to $10,000 or how much ever the tax is at the end of the year, the majority of people, and I'm pretty confident in saying like in the high 90s%, they are 2-3 years behind on their taxes. The insurance lapsed, and now they're getting foreclosed on with the reverse mortgage. And so it's one of those situations where I agree with you. I mean, I think the concept is that the way they market it is, hey, you don't owe anything, like you don't owe monthly, but they don't get that, oh, I still have to pay my taxes.
And
I have
HOA
to,
dues
yes,
and everything.
Right. It's crazy. And so I agree with you. I think it's a terrible loan, but you know, I'm not a loan officer, so whatever.
Sure.
But as far as how it relates to short sales, so in these situations, I've had people that, like I said, pass away, because the only time that a reverse mortgage will be in foreclosure is when the borrower passes away. Okay. So they can't foreclose on a homeowner unless that homeowner, the borrower, is passed away, because that's the clause, because they're not paying anything. Right. So in that case, you work with the heirs. And when we talked about on the subject heirship, so we would have to get an affidavit of heirship. And we work with them, but they're not making any money. They'll never make any money. So that's really difficult, because it's not against their credit. They're not making any money, so why would they go through that process?
They'll just let it go into foreclosure.
Right.
Now, one thing that Andrew is saying is, he says bank does not get the home on a reverse liened home sale. Reverse bank gets proceeds to pay off lien, and then he says heirs get home and proceeds minus reverse mortgage lien. Can you speak on that?
I don't
think, what?
Well, just the way you said it too, but I don't think that's 100% correct, because the heirs are never going to get proceeds. That concept is when, if you get foreclosed on and there is extra besides what, if the bank gets the house, bank ends up selling the house, but it's more than what is owed on the lien, then the heirs and, you know, whatever, the owner or whatever gets the extra back. Okay. So like, say you're getting foreclosed on and the bank sells it $350, but you only owed $300, that $50,000 you would get it back, because the bank can only get what's owed.
But from what I was, I know very little about all of this, but I listened to 2 YouTube videos from randos last night.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, so you'll be able to.
You said enough there.
Yeah, you'll be able to tell me.
I was really ghosting Nicole, because I was like looking at all her stuff, listening to all her videos, because she does little clips. They're really, really good. I mean, that's how, just to get familiar a little bit with what she deals with, because of course I've dealt with different situations, but not in depth the way you have, because this is your specialty.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, we've dealt with heirs and all this stuff, and I was going to ask, as far as heirs are concerned, so you have to go and track down all the heirs and get them all on board.
Yep.
Who died?
The only way, I mean, a lot of them just want to do the right thing, or if they're living in the home, they short sell. The benefit is, hey, you can stay a little bit longer, a couple months, without having to get foreclosed on. So if you work with me and the investor will buy it or whatever, then we'll be able to do that for you. And it's very straightforward. When you deal with reverse mortgages, a lot of times you're just dealing directly, like in Texas, it's Novad, Champions. There's only a couple of the lenders. Okay. And it's very straightforward. It's not like a traditional short sale. There's no financials involved. There's none of that. They order the appraisal, and you still have to submit all the documents. Right. But it's a much shorter process than it is in a traditional short sale. So I will take a reverse mortgage all day, every day.
Oh yes,
over traditional. Yeah, because it's a little bit faster.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Kaylee, are you with us? Okay. So as far as so you'd prefer dealing with short sales on a reverse mortgage than having to do like a traditional.
I mean, obviously, I'll do anything.
Right.
But yeah, they're a lot more streamlined.
Okay. So time wise, you're looking at
the shortest shorts I've ever done was 45 days.
Okay, but that was on a reverse mortgage.
It was on a reverse mortgage.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Because I mean, a lot of people.
But we knew it was Novad, so we work with them all the time. So we're like, here, let's do this, and then it was honestly we probably would have closed sooner had the investor gotten their funds sooner.
Okay, interesting. You know, I was going to ask you something, and I asked you over the phone, but I want our viewers to hear this.
Yeah.
I was listening to an interview that you did with RJ last year, and you were talking about that you were doing 10 to 15 foreclosures a month. Mm-hmm. But now, fast forward 2019, you're doing 30 to 35 a month.
Yeah.
That is impressive. Now, are you talking about 30, 35 a month just in Houston, or Houston and Dallas combined?
It's a combination of Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, because we have about 6 listings in San Antonio. And then, I mean, now we're working in Oklahoma, Arkansas, So, I mean, as far as stopping the foreclosures, it's generally just Texas.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the goal is to do 30 a month.
Okay.
And manage about 75 to 100 a month.
And that takes me to my next question. What is your new your hashtag that you're doing now?
Road to 300.
Hashtag Road to 300. What is that about? Explain that.
We're trying to do 300 closings this year.
Okay.
To help 300 homeowners.
That's fantastic.
So
that is.
I'm all about what you put out there.
Right.
You know, and I have a vision board, and I feel like mindset is everything in any part of owning a business and entrepreneurship. So I'm just constantly putting that out there. But yeah.
Right. That's really,
you'll get
really
that back.
great. Yeah, totally mindset. Is the short sale process the same nationwide, or is it different per state?
Nationwide. The only thing that is different are, the state laws, like when it comes to foreclosure, the process of, the contracts and closing. So like, for example, like California has an actual escrow and attorney. And so that's the only difference when it actually comes to closing.
Right.
But the short sale process is the same.
Yes,
that's how we're able to do it nationwide.
Okay, yes, I've noticed that with California, it's very different, right? Even
so
their
complicated,
super complicated.
Yeah, I was dealing with some investors here, and they were like mad at me because they're like, "Well, you have to verbalize. We're going to assign this contract to someone who's signing on behalf of the legal team, and this, that, and the other." And I was like, "What? Like, who's the name I use? Like, is it the buyer or is the buyer's buyer?" Yeah, it was not.
I've had to look over a couple of contracts from over there. I'm like, "Oh, no, this is not."
Yeah, so I had to use like 2 extra here. I was like, we don't do it like
very
that.
different. So how do you deal with that? I mean,
so generally, if it's out of state and I'm not licensed, I generally partner with a realtor in that area, and they can take care of we'll do all the processing, and they can take care of the contracts. I mean, it's very simple for them because they get to keep the listing, they get to advertise, all of that, the buyer leads, things like that.
Right.
And then, I mean, we just do all of the hard stuff.
Okay.
One thing I did find out from watching those rando videos was that, because I go, as an agent, how do you even know if it's in a short sale, And so apparently in the MLS, you can just search it. There's a field literally on the listing or the past expired listing, whatever it is. I just click all the options, and then you can see, because maybe they're still sitting on it or whatever, but you can see in the very bottom, right before it gets to the details about like the house being lovely and all this, there's a little thing right there. It says
short sale, yes or no.
Short sale, yes, or your second,
And then in Houston, MLS and HAR, it's loss mitigation, yes or no. So pretty much all the MLSs, you can filter them.
Right.
But
Subboard too, right?
Hopefully the realtor filled it out right, because you're relying on them to check yes or no.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing. So the best way I think would be to go to Nicole's. So you have access to HAR, MLS, and then here in Dallas. So we just look for you and then look at all your listings, and those are all short sale listings.
Yes.
Okay.
My team. I have a team that does traditional, but anything that with my name on it will be a short sale.
A short sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Now I've got a weird question. Okay.
Y'all rando videos, weird questions. Okay, got
it. That's my job. Like my brain's like squirrel, all the time. So obviously, it's the movie, The Big Short.
Oh my
You've
gosh,
seen that movie, right?
I love that movie.
So it's a really cool, action-packed view into what precipitated, the 2008 crash and moving forward. And what I really learned from that movie was it was mortgage-backed securities and then issues with people buying notes, or I don't even know, to tell you the truth, but I know that it had something to do with shorting something. So I don't know if short sales and that are completely different or somewhat related.
No, it's not the same. So, but it's funny because we were talking about that. I'm like the most obnoxious person to watch that movie with because I'm like, okay, so there's a house in Fort Worth, and this is what happened with this house, and and oh my gosh, see, because it's so true. So what you're talking about is. Basically, it's the bad notes. So what they were doing was they were doing adjustable rate mortgages, and they were putting these
arm length,
right. And so a lot of these homeowners, they weren't explained everything. So they would get into a mortgage at $1,500 a month, and if they didn't refinance, it would go up to $2,500, $2,600, whatever it was, and they didn't understand that they have to refinance to get out of that. And so most people, they live paycheck to paycheck. So $1,500 was their max. So there's no way. So that's what they're talking about, is that they were making more money by putting these people in the adjustable rate mortgages. They're making like 10 grand, how much ever it was, like they said in the movie. And then when people would be in default.
Right?
Right.
Yes. Okay. And so people would be in default, which they're talking about the mortgage-backed securities.
Yeah.
So they would be in default, and then they would just keep reselling it. And so they would repackage it, and service release it and all of that. And so that's what happened, is that they were lending to people that didn't have credit, that didn't even have
those ninja loans.
Yeah, like didn't have income, didn't have anything, like, and it was exaggerated. But I'm sure there was, a stripper that had 5 houses that was on that movie. Yes. But that's what it was. I mean, it was so easy.
Like, what? I can't afford these.
I have to refinance. I don't understand.
I love how you stated in your book. You mentioned this exactly, and I wanted to say it at the beginning, and it just kind of went over my head. But the whole thing about how all these buyers, all the things that they were doing, where of course, as long as you had a pulse and you could actually have breathe, fog up a mirror, you could get a loan. That's literally how it was.
It was
pre-2008.
Yep.
But what you were saying about what these buyers were doing to get loans, like putting their kids' social security number to
I had somebody that I did one, and then her daughter, she was 13, and I was so upset because I'm a mom, right? So I'm like, how could you already put your daughter in a foreclosure? And she hasn't even started her life yet.
Wow.
Yeah, so she had 2 houses under her daughter's name, all
her
that.
Credit is
trash.
Insane,
right? Yeah, that's sick.
13 years old.
Yeah.
She got approved for 2
babies
mortgages.
too. I've heard from in the past, like just newborns. Yeah. So we have a comment or a question here. Was, as an investor, we always preach JV when trying something new. With short sales, should I JV or just go straight in if I can use someone like yourself?
So when it comes to actually your strategy of purchasing a short sale, you have to be the end buyer. And if you're going to wholesale it, you have to do a double close because the approval letters are buyer specific.
Right.
So if we submit everything, to the lender, they want your LLC, your LLC docs, your proof of funds, and the actual approval letter is going to say, Nicole Espinosa is approved for this, and it's very specific. So you can't switch out the buyers.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So we've had a lot of investors that are wholesalers, and they will, be creative and either close on it and then do a double close, or they will, end up submitting it under someone else's name and then charging them a fee on the back end. So it really just depends on, what your strategy is. But yeah, so you have to be the one that ends up closing whatever we submit to the bank.
Right. And in my experience, I think I would definitely recommend just going directly and working with you, because this is your area of expertise and you've handled these. I mean, if you're new and you're trying to get into this and trying to deal with all that situation, I don't think that would be a smart idea to do that.
Well, it's funny because, real estate's already super complicated, and I'm doing like the most complicated part of it. And so, I mean, and it's not that I'm extremely smart, right? It's just that I've been doing this for so long that you see so much. I've done over 500 of them. I mean, so it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I know this because of this. And experience is the biggest teacher. I mean, I will tell you, like, and even like my staff now, they'll tell me, oh, Nicole, I can't do this. Okay, look, this is what you need to do. Because I remember that one time that I got them to say yes. So I know that it's possible.
Right. So, I like that. And I like that the fact that you've built up your team both in Houston and in Dallas, that you have them like right offhand to help the community. And speaking of Houston, I know with Hurricane Harvey and everything that happened, we've seen a lot of things. It was like a micro change to the market because it wasn't as macro as the 2008 bubble and everything. But
it was for Houston. It was
for Houston. It was a big deal. Yeah. So did you see an influx of short sales in Houston due to Hurricane Harvey?
Oh my gosh, and it's still coming. I mean,
I know.
I was really blessed because I'm all referral, so I don't do any marketing to sellers, and I work with a lot of investors in Houston. And I didn't want to expand to Houston, to be honest, because I'm like, oh, I have to drive down there. Like, but then I'm like, you know what? I started to get like 10 to 15, and there was such a need because there wasn't anyone that did it or knew how to do it. So I started going down there, and I was there for like a solid 6 months, and then Hurricane Harvey happened. And it was like right place at the right time. Yes. I had just entered the market, and everyone was like, oh, Nicole.
Yes.
I need your help. Yeah. So no, for sure. And people I'm still dealing with Hurricane Harvey. I just got one yesterday that she had just got the house. They were newlyweds, and 2 weeks they purchased the house, and then Hurricane Harvey hit, and she's been trying to get help. Like, she had a forbearance, which means that you don't have to pay for a certain amount of time without any consequences. And
how do you get a forbearance, by the way? I've never
the bank will offer it because of the disaster. So that's why most of the short sales happened it wasn't right away.
Right.
So it took 6 months, a year for people to start wanting to sell their home because they didn't have an option.
Right.
Because most people don't have flood insurance. Why would you get flood insurance unless you're in a flood zone? Right? And so this lady specifically, she, it was so sad. Their newlyweds just got the house, everything, and then she's been trying to work with her bank for a year, and they were like, oh, by the way, your loan is so new, so we can't help you. So now she's like, forget this, I'm getting foreclosed on in a month, can you help me?
Yeah, Hurricane Harvey did a lot. Yeah, it did a lot to our city. I mean, I'm from Houston. I live in Houston, so I know this all too well, everything that's happened, especially something key you said. Why have flood insurance in an area that doesn't flood? And unfortunately, Hurricane Harvey flooded areas that have never flooded before.
Right.
So that's really
and nobody
sad.
has $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to fix their house.
Right.
You know. So.
Right. Yes, it's really, really sad. I mean, but I'm glad that you're doing something to help. So you've been able to help everyone that's come your way. Okay, that's good. Well, then there you go, folks. Anyone in Houston or any situation that you know that they're in distress, definitely get with Nicole. She's your gal. And with that, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Get your questions in so we can answer them right after this break.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites. Access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
So thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about short sales, multiple liens, Heirship, and
reverse mortgages.
And reverse mortgages. And we want to know from our audience, let us know in the comments, have you ever done a short sale before? Are you experienced in short sales? How long ago have you done them? What special circumstance? But we really want to know, have you done short sales in the past? And we have a great question from one of our fabulous followers, Lynette Jones. Her question is, how long do short sales take to close? For instance, if you have a seller that is in pre-foreclosure, is there time normally to make a short sale happen?
So that's a great question.
Yes.
So the one doesn't have to do with the other. It doesn't matter where they are, whether it's pre-foreclosure or foreclosure. It's the same amount of time to do a short sale. That's literally the most common question. How long is it going to take? And it's the hardest question to answer because it's all depending on the person that's doing it and facilitating it.
Pre-foreclosure, if you can correct me, does that mean that they're behind by 90 days or 60 days, or when does that get published like that?
Absolutely. So it depends on how fast the attorney is, but generally after 90 days, 90 to 120 days, the bank will hire an attorney and they will file in the county to start the foreclosure process. And so that's when it becomes pre-foreclosure, that becomes public record that we know about. Auction is where they already have a date set. So if it's pre-foreclosure, it means you have time. They haven't set a sale date yet, so there's not like a 20 days, 15 days kind of timeline.
Got it. Because I was like, well, what point would that question start? You know what I mean? Like once it's considered pre-foreclosure and that attorney's hired, or once,
But you can do it I've done it when people are 30 days behind. So they don't have to necessarily be in foreclosure in order to do a short sale.
Got it.
And it's actually better to do it sooner. That way the equity that they have left, because that won't.
Well, they won't have equity.
They won't have equity. So,
but it's better for their credit.
Right, because that way it doesn't reflect the 30, the 90, and all these 120. All these months late behind on their credit, right?
But it's true, because the longer the process goes, the harder it is to recover, because the short sale is not what affects their credit. It's the missed payments. So every month their credit's getting dinged because it's reported late. So the faster that we can actually do it, that's why it's never a good thing to drag it out. Because years and years and years, well, now you have years and years of late payments when we can settle the debt and you can move on and get another house eventually. Let's get you out of this mess, settle your debt so that you can walk away free and clear and rebuild. And that's always what I tell my clients, like, let's think about the future.
Okay, so Casey Della, I'd like to know Nicole's insight into volume of short sale activity and what it says about the market. Does it indicate any kind of market shift either way?
Absolutely, Casey. I was saying this last year when we felt, because we're so heavy listing based, and I see, you know, the areas, the trends, and I very much keep up with that, especially locally, because it affects my business. It absolutely does. Once the market shifts into a buyer's market and the sellers lose the ability to sell quick, it will always mean more people that are needing to sell, and a lot faster, which means short sales.
So
because right now, absolutely.
And it's definitely a buyer's market right now.
It is, absolutely. And the thing is that, you know, if you guys have been doing this a while, so you remember, you know, even just a year ago, when in certain areas people were paying $10,000 to $15,000 above appraisal. So the people that were only a couple months behind and really weren't that upside down, they were able to just sell it. Well, now what? People are reducing $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. So values are going down, and they're taking longer, and these people don't have the time. So it absolutely indicates more short sales.
So, so Kelly Smith said, Nicole mentioned this was her busiest month. Is this a change in the market?
No, it's just me. Because
She's amazing.
No, because fabulous. Not because of that, but because I have like solely focused on really making relationships with the right people and just been out there, I mean, just busting my butt. So that's it.
And it's all about the connections. I think it's all about the connections and the fact that you're very successful this because you've been doing this so long. You have very, very strong relationships with these banks too. That you already know who to call, who do you need to get to. If you need to escalate it, because you talk a lot about that in the book, when you need to escalate a file, who you need to go with. Because if you're not getting the right, or you're not getting the doors open, it's because you're not dealing with the right people,
100%.
right? So I think that's key. And Brian Holman says, I have a property with a HUD lien from a previous loan mod of $40,000. Does that have to be paid if I take it over sub 2?
What?
Well, if you remember, if you're taking over a property sub 2, then you are taking it to the existing liens. So that is not actually, the HUD lien is not actually getting paid, but you will not get clear title. So the HUD liens, because it's a loan modification, it's just a second lien. So they're not actually making payments towards it. What you'll find is that the majority of people that have them have no idea they have a second lien. They just signed all the documents and they're like, what are you talking about? I don't have a second lien. Like, yes, you do, because you did a modification.
That creates a second lien.
Exactly. So if you do a sub 2, just remember that you have to factor that in with your numbers, because now you have $40,000 more that you're gonna have to pay, you know, in the property.
Exactly. So you have Carrie Benson. Does your title company do a full title search every time you get something under contract, or just a soft opening? I found that title companies don't want to do a full title search every time I get something under contract.
We get a full schedule, because the reason why is the soft is just like a quick,
condensed
version.
It's not a full commitment. What's the title on this one? She's like, there's this, it's good.
That's what it is. It's quick.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well, if we get the full commitment, we
all
see
the schedules and
all of the schedules. We see, you know, the actual things that are filed, like the judgments, the originals, things like that. And yes, ours absolutely does a full, because we end up closing with them. So the reason why maybe another title company might be hesitant to do that is because you're just asking for information. You're not intending to actually close with them. So we use the same one for everything.
Got it.
So.
Again, we go back to the relationship.
100%.
Having a good relationship with your escrow officer, because you have that ability to call them in, have it quick, and that way you know what you're dealing with. That way you prepare your package the correct way and everything, right? So, okay, Jose Ventura. Hey, Jose, he's from Houston. What if you only got a month till the reverse mortgage forecloses? Can you still get these closed?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. A month is a long time.
Yeah, it is. That's plenty of time.
Hurry up. The worst thing you could do, guys, is try everything and then a couple days before say, okay, Nicole, there's a foreclosure date in 3 days. Make your magic happen. I'm like, no. Let's have a conversation at the beginning. Let's talk about in the beginning. You're going to do your creative solutions, whether it's sub 2, reinstating, whatever you guys do on the investment side. But let's have a conversation, because if it doesn't work out, at least I'm involved and I can give you the right advice to not wait to the last minute.
Right.
Because the homeowner's trusting you. The homeowner's working with just you. And the worst thing you could do is try all your creative solutions, get nowhere, and then put the property in foreclosure. Absolutely.
I agree
happens
with
all
this.
the time.
You're right about this. I see that happening a lot.
Makes me so sad.
I see that a lot of investors go in and offer things and guarantee things that they should not guarantee. Like, oh, we guarantee this, and I hear a lot of things that are the misconception here, and so you have to be clear up front. Absolutely. And I mean, if you haven't really touched my suggestion, you haven't really touched a short sale or have done with it, and you have a situation where your client or the person you're speaking to, the distressed homeowner, they're close to foreclosure, send it off to the right people and actually help them, because if not, you're doing a great disservice. This is a family. This is a home that you're dealing with, and this isn't something.
And they're trusting to just work with you, not anybody else.
And so it's something you can't back out of. You have to really rhino through it. Matt Smith, how do I find a good short sale realtor in my area? Are there key questions to ask? And I believe Matt Smith, I don't know if he's in Las Vegas or. Where? Vegas, right? Because I thought he was in Nebraska, but okay, he's in Vegas.
I thought he was local.
So it depends. If you're looking for someone to partner up with to facilitate, to process, hi, my name's Nicole. But if you're looking to find, short sales, really you just need someone, as far as the right questions to ask, just someone that has a basis understanding of the process. So that way, if they're representing you to buy it, they know whether you're wasting your time or not. Because again, I go back to the success of the short sale is the agent that's processing it. Because they're the ones that are 100% in control and communication with negotiations and things like that. So just make sure that they understand that, asking the right questions to the person that's facilitating the process.
So absolutely get with Nicole.
I want to ask you this question because I think it's related to the market. So, for example, we just answered earlier that where the market turns into a buyer's market, we're going to see more short sales. So, in the next 2 years, what do you think about staying a buyer's market, becoming a seller's market at some point? Because Chris Sweeney is asking, in the next 1 to 2 years, what volume of short sale activity do we expect? And that's related to the market.
So, I think my theory is based off of the type of loans that are being originated, based on the last couple years when we were at our height, and I would see people that were overpaying, couldn't afford it. I have gotten more new builds as short sales than I ever have in my entire career.
Interesting.
And so I truly believe 2020, 2021, we are going to see an influx of people that are realizing, like, I can't afford this mortgage because of whatever reason. The more lenient, and it's a cycle, real estate's a cycle, so the more lenient they are with loans, which is happening, the more people end up defaulting. So that's my theory.
You're right. I see that. I mean, I've been in it for so long, and I see it because, you said it correctly. The market is so cyclical. I mean, we have market shifts every 90 days. Every 90 days, you see a shift in the market. And I'll tell you, I have just a quick thing. I have a flip in an area called the Woodlands, which is very well known in Houston.
Best place to shop in Houston.
Yes, it is beautiful. Yeah, it's a great place. We got a great deal on it. We actually bought it from a wholesaler, a friend of ours. And the ARV was, I think, it was 340,000. That was the conservative. In the summertime, in the fall, a house 2 doors down sold for 370, and it's not even in the type of shape that we did, and we took a little bit longer. See, that's where it made sense for us to take a little bit longer with that house, because we were going to wholesale it initially, and that buyer flaked out on us forever and ever and ever, and so we ended up just fixing it up, rehabbing it, putting it on the market. It's still on the market, but I've had a lot of interest in it, and the ARV is much higher. So I mean, something that happened in a matter of 90 days, we saw a change. So, but I do believe that we will have a shift in the market where some of the, all these loans that are happening, because I'm hearing it right now, as long as you show that you have deposits, large deposits in your bank account, you're good. You don't have to show. I mean, that's sounding to me again like
it sounds like I need to hire more people. Is what it sounds like.
It sounds like a subprime lending situation happening again. Even though underwriting is very strict, but I see that happening again. So I know there will be a dip, and that actually it's sad for the people that are in that, put themselves in that situation, these distressed sellers. But it's actually good because it'll help kind of weed a lot of bad stuff out. Wouldn't you agree on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Because we saw a huge change from.
But I also think that it got out of control with the prices that were insane. The same houses in McKinney now that were, people were fighting at 300. People are practically trying to give them away.
Yes.
And because it got to the point where it wasn't affordable anymore. I mean, if you were wanting a $250,000 house, you were having to drive to, out to Forney and Garland and like these areas that it wasn't central, right? And so I think it's finally. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think we're trying to. I think we're stabilizing. I don't think the market's going to crash, but I do think that we are going to see a lot more people that are in default.
Yeah. Right. So when it comes to listing a house or whatever, I just have to be super realistic with the people because they have that mindset still a little bit where they're like
they're still reading the articles where it's a seller's market.
Right. Well, not just that, but like they're like, well, not too many months ago, a friend of mine basically, I go on appraisal value and I use an AVM or automated valuation model that I get inside MLS, which is an algorithm that plays off of past, previous, current sales once it's sold. So I'm able to.
Is it RPR?
I just get inside like the tax, but I mean it is tax, but it's in a little different button. But I just take the average of all that stuff plus the average of what things actually sold for versus the valuation model, and I can get it like 98% spot on of what it's going to appraise for, and so then we know what to offer. Well, they're like, well, I want this much higher, and it's like, or when they're selling it, they want this much higher. I'm like, do you want to keep it on the market for a year or no?
Well, I always explain to sellers that it's more important when you come into a market where houses are starting to appraise higher than what people are actually purchasing it for because 30, 60 days ago people were paying more, that it's more important on active to look at what your competition is more than sold. Right. Because when you look at value, you look at sold where you know what it will appraise for. Yeah. But active is just as important because why would you, who cares if it's sold at a certain price if your competition is $20,000, $30,000 less? Right. So I always explain that to sellers like we were saying. And within the first 30 days, that's your key time for marketing. The worst thing you can do is overprice it. Right. And I tell my agents, I'm like, do not even take the listing. If you cannot get them on terms, you're going to waste your time, money, and you're going to have, and at the end of the day, you're the expert for a reason.
Yeah, he's like, bring me an offer, bring me an offer, bring me an offer. And I told him up front, it's going to cost this much. We're going to sell it at this price. Yeah. And I got him to go down and down and down and down, but never to where it would sell. And then finally, some people were in love with it. And I was like, just make us an offer. And,
but that's the point. And it gets to that point.
And it was
you're like, I'm going to give it away.
He was like, no. And you're still sitting on it. Yep. To this day. And so now
it's more of a headache for you.
It's more work. Living now.
It's everything. So it's like, why even go there if you can't get them on terms? And I explain that to them. I'm like, and like you said, it gets to the point where you're like, just make me an offer. Yeah. Right. And you become desperate. You don't have any more leverage.
Exactly. So Nicole, we have Chris Sweeney that's asking, what are your top tricks to expedite a short sale?
Top tricks. Let's see. Okay. Well, first of all, always find out what type of loan it is, because that way you know who the person is that's actually making the decision, right? So if it's FHA, you go to HUD. If it's VA, USDA, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Then the person assigned, if you're not able to work it out with them, if they're not working on it.
You need the negotiator,
You need the negotiator. Right. You go to the manager, and then honestly, it's tenacity. It really is being tenacious because if you just do it once and then you're just like, okay, I called them one time and left a voicemail, which half the time they don't even check their voicemails. Right. It's real. The best advice I can give you is to stay on top of it. Yeah. Call every single day. Yes.
So you have an assistant that's in Thailand doing this, right? You're not making all these calls all day long.
No,
yourself?
I don't make calls anymore.
A team that
I have a team. So the way my business is structured with the short sales, we have a process that I put in place 8 years ago, and we just customize it as requirements change, things like that. But I have someone at the office, my office manager, who is pretty much running things of being the point of contact for the banks. And then I have 2 VAs that literally every day we tell them exactly what to, they're just checking on it. Mm-hmm. Hey, did you get this? Hey, did you get this? Hey, did you get her fax? Hey, did you get her email? Because we want to be that person that's 20%. Yeah, we have an e-fax.
Right. Do they still want documents faxed over to them?
Oh, yeah, everything's by fax.
That's hilarious.
I know, but ours is the e-fax, and that's why I laugh at the realtor memes, because I'm in a different world than most realtors. Right. And they're like, oh, what is it, 1980? I'm like, oh, I have one. It's like, it's e-fax though.
Yeah. That's great.
Yes. It's all done online. Does that count?
PDF, right. Yeah. I know. Well, I mean, you have to go with what the banks requires.
We kill a lot of trees. Nothing's paperless.
Exactly. So we have Renee Daniel, also from Houston. Hey, Renee. Per previous question, what if the title company did not pay the HUD lien from the loan mod when the house was sold?
That's what title insurance is for. So if it showed up on title, the title company should be able to pay for it through the title insurance.
Nice.
All of that will pull up. It's all public record.
Right. So Nicole, I know I'm asking for myself, and I know a couple of other people may be asking this. Do you offer any classes? Do you offer like an in-depth, other than your book? Because I highly recommend that subtle plug and not subtle plug, because it's really, really good. I mean, it really goes into the details of short sales, of the process, the documentation you need. But after that, once we read your book, how else can we learn from you? How else can we get in contact with you? Do you?
So I actually I have 2-hour CE classes that I haven't really taught. I do it with the associations. I also do presentations at, I have a lot of investors that have whole acquisition teams that I'll come in and do a presentation to them and kind of explain, this is how you need to talk to the clients and answer their questions. So I'm always open to coming to the office and doing that. You can follow me on Facebook. I'm always doing videos and trying to, the more questions I get asked, then I'll do a video on it, because I know more people will have questions on that.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, the book, guys, it's less than $10. It's like a cup of coffee.
Yes.
But I mostly wrote it so that people could feel like you were saying, oh, I know what I'm talking about. And that's the point. Because if I can help people not get other people into foreclosure, if I can help do that, I mean, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
So it's on Amazon. It's short sales, uncensored. And like she said, it's just explaining the ins and outs and really educating you on how to, and even if you don't do short sales, really how to work with distressed sellers, which is huge.
Right, and how to ask the questions and what the right questions.
Absolutely.
I highly recommend it, because it's a short read.
It is. It's super. Nobody wants to read 500 pages on short sales.
It's a short read, but it's very, very good. It's very precise. It's to the point.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it, and I think that it's a premise to get your foot in the door with getting with Nicole afterwards. Because once you get this down and you understand this, the next step is reaching out to you and
Yeah,
I got my stuff down. Matt Smith also has another question. Does investing in a short sale profit any better than finding a sub-2 property?
It can. That question would really base off of, or the answer to that would really base off of the situation.
Right.
Because if you can't do sub-2, then you can buy the house at a discount. So it's really going to depend on how far behind they are, what they owe, things like that. Because a lot of the investors I work with, they only refer it because they are not able to do a creative solution, and it doesn't make sense to sub-2 and reinstate a loan that's $150,000 behind.
Yes.
Well, you know what? That's something else I picked up from those random videos that I was going to mention earlier.
I love your little nuggets.
This guy was like,
screenshot you.
Nuggets. This guy was like, so something that realtors don't realize, and that's why they go and give up, and they think that you can only get the house at, say, 20%, 30% discount or something like that. And he's like, no, sometimes you can get a deep discount, like 70, 80%, and they're just afraid to offer that to the banks. And this is from like an investor standpoint. So how do you feel about that? And what's your experience with getting,
Well, I don't know when the rando did the video, but things have definitely changed a lot.
Right.
You should look at the date, right?
Because it's like 2014,
that's
probably.
Right.
Yeah, but here you have to understand this. So I have seen, when I first started doing short sales, there weren't even short sale departments. There was loss mitigation departments.
Right.
Okay. So the banks really didn't have guidelines, because the only thing that they really knew was foreclosures.
Yeah.
Because back before the crash, there was loan modifications, but there was never really a need for short sales. So it wasn't on high demand like it is now, or have been so many. So before, I mean, there were investors, you could read articles on it. There was investors that were processing their own short sales. They were I remember the first couple ones I did, they were asking me what I think the value is.
That's ridiculous.
And so so I laugh when people will call me and say, I used to do this all the time. And I was like, what year did you do it?
Right.
Because everything has changed.
It's like, please.
Well, just like real estate, right? It's like it's like a realtor coming to you and saying, I did it for 20 years back in 2009. Okay. Wow.
I know.
Contracts have completely changed.
Oh, trust me.
Everything has changed.
Requirements have changed.
The same is with short sales. The guidelines are completely different.
Right.
The pre-foreclosure programs are different. Everything's different.
Yes.
So as far as what to offer, in the beginning, it doesn't matter. You could literally, I tell my clients, the investor could offer $1 and it will not matter, because the bank only knows how much the borrower owes. They have no idea what the house is actually worth as is. So we get the appraisal or the BPO value, and that's when we negotiate.
Right.
Got it.
So in the beginning, you can absolutely put a lowball offer in. It doesn't matter. But it's going to matter when the bank comes back and says, hey, this is what the value is, and this is what we're willing to accept based off of that.
Oh, because that was my other question earlier was, you know, about making those offers, and you have to, this other person on these videos I was watching was like, you have to make a bazillion offers, you know, I think said something like 200 offers a month or something crazy like that to get so many back. And I didn't know if, you know, when you're a retail agent, you know, as far as structuring what kind of offer you give, like what kind of financing you state, on and on and on, that shows the strength of your offer. And so then when you have competing offers, then you're able to win over others based on what you put in your contract. So I'm curious, when you're dealing with the bank-owned, same thing or totally not even?
So the bank doesn't really look, as the agent, we look at that, right? Because we know that if you're offering an FHA loan on a house that, you know, the roof, we can see through the roof, that's not going to go, right? It's not going to go through. So we look at that on our end, but the banks only look at their bottom line. They're only looking at their minimum net. So everything else, it doesn't matter.
Is there any way to find that out before you make an offer?
No, because
I know.
It's only not. It depends. Now, if you're just offering on the MLS, that's different. Because it depends on where the agent is as part of the process. They could have already been told, hey, you know, that's a great question to ask. If you are offering on the MLS, here you go. Is this an approved price? That's huge because we want to know why the agent listed it at that price, because a lot of agents are used to traditional transactions, and they go, I have a listing agreement, let's put it on the market, and they have no idea what the bank is actually willing to consider.
And they haven't even
notified the bank. They haven't done anything.
They haven't even started the process.
Do you ever find an MLS listing like that where they have gotten offers and they've gotten rejected and they still keep it on MLS because they're like, well, someone will eventually put in an offer that they'll accept?
100%. Oh, I have investors now that will call me. They'll call me and they'll say, help me, I'm working with one right now, and he'll be like, hi, can you tell me what to say now? And I'm like, okay, so tell the agent she needs to go through HomePath, she needs to do this, this, and this. And so I'm helping him walk through it and tell the agent what to do, because the agent doesn't know how to fix the price because of what you said. It's been on the market for so long, and the bank gave him a price, but they don't know how to, you know, get it down. So
yeah, and I think that's a huge mistake for agents, because especially like if I'm submitting an offer on a short sale home, you have to ask the agents, like, there are very key questions you need to ask them. Have you spoken to the negotiator? What's the price that they're willing to take? Or just ask as many questions.
Are there multiple liens?
Are there multiple liens?
Is there a foreclosure date? Because you know, if it's in 2 weeks, like, are you going to get a stops? Like, am I wasting my time?
What are the fees that the lender will cover, and what will they not? Like closing costs, all these things, right? I mean, there's the more you know, the more you get, the more information you get from the agent.
And if they don't know the answer to the question,
because they haven't done their job,
run
as far as
it'll never close, because it's up to them. So they don't even know how to answer the basic questions of how much is the bank willing to accept. You know, like she's saying, you're never going to get anywhere.
That's right.
Okay.
So.
Perfect.
That's right. Well,
you gotta have your own questions ready.
Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, there's so much more we can dive into, but there's only so
an hour.
Much time, only an hour, and we've already gone over that hour. So we thank you, Nicole, for coming.
Absolutely, thanks for having me.
And I think that we may do a follow-up on another show. We'll have that in our thoughts.
I definitely learned that.
And
I think
keep
my
asking.
Team
You guys keep asking your questions. Keep making comments on the thread. We're gonna go back. Nicole, Kaylee, and myself will go back and answer as much as we can. Obviously, as many questions you can ask to Nicole, that would be great. Also, don't forget, Propelio.com is here for you. You can get a 7-day free trial, no credit card needed, so you can get your comps, you can get leads for your investment deals, and you can also get your team set up with Propelio, which is a phenomenal tool. I also recommend that you're on the lookout for Driving for Dollars app that's coming out soon. Wow. And yes, which is pretty amazing. I heard the other day Daniel did a little, I guess he did a run through of what the app is going to do. So it's going to be pretty amazing. You could drop pins and everything. It's going to be fantastic. Awesome. So be on the lookout for that. Propelio Academy, also fantastic tool, free education. Anything and everything you want to know about real estate investing is there for you. So Nicole, how can we get in touch with you? Give us all your information. After we read your book, how can we
So in my book, it has my information, but you can also reach out to me. Nicole is your realtor at gmail.com. And you can also, my number is 972-832-2755.
On social media, how can we find you on social media?
I think they're going to tag me.
Okay,
so
great.
you can put Nicole Espinosa.
Just click on that.
Just click on that.
You can reach me at my phone number, 469-990-4627, and the company name is RE by Kaylee, and it is a track-approved brokerage. If you need anything, just give me a call or text.
Fantastic. And my name again, Elizabeth Navarrete with Houston REI Network. I am in Houston and here in Dallas. Also, we do some stuff in Chicago. So you can find me on Facebook. My name is tagged also on the thread. You can find me on Facebook through Houston REI Network LLC, or on Instagram also as Houston REI Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to keep those comments going. And until next time.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage Investments. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.